Hi guys, I didn't know that the time had started. So I welcome you to this live session. I just thought I thought about, I wanted to do this session, even before the criminal law session we had yesterday. But here we are anyway. Today I just wanted to reflect on my mediation journey a bit and to talk about some of the things that I find very fascinating about mediation, especially the work that I've done in recent time. So a couple of weeks ago, about 3, 4 weeks ago, I had some interns from a public university in Nigeria come into my session, and they wanted to observe my session, just for a short while, and a lot of questions to ask me. So, what is this? What is that? I remember one of them asked me that, how did I get into mediation? Like, what inspired or what spurred me into mediation? Honestly, I told him nothing. Actually, I got a job here. They posted me to the mediation center, and that's how I started working here. So I'm not gonna pretend. I'm not gonna pretend and say that it was my dream to be a mediator. I've always been interested. I have not. As a matter of fact, I used to not like ADR, when I was a student. Although, of course, I paid attention to everything I was being taught. But when I got this job and they posted me to the mediation center, right from get go, and I've worked as a mediator for 3 years now. Uh, I realized that we should all be mediators. Actually, mediation is a very fantastic, method for resolving disputes. It is beautiful. It's very much so for me because I work in a place where if I were in another department, say maybe litigation, maybe if I was in a prosecuting department. Of course, I worked in prosecution too for almost 2 years, but it wasn't my primary assignment. My primary assignment, so I was just combining with mediation because at the time, my director was doing some work for the public prosecutions department, but my key work was mediation, and I realized that if I had been in another department, I wouldn't have probably had much impact because I see the work that mediation does in people's lives, it's mind blowing. Sometimes I run into people and they greet me in town and they say, or maybe when I'm going to work and they say, not really in town. I don't think I've run into people in town. Yeah, I have actually in a matter, I did a property matter at some point. So this is generally about mediation. So I'm just going to be reflecting on my mediation experience. So yeah, I remember that I met a woman at the ATM once, and she was greeting me very well. And what happened was that in a matter, she had a land dispute, which I spoke about in my book. If you haven't gotten my book on mediation, please get it. It's a reflection of my 3 years journey, and it's important. It's an important documentation of my experience that I really want to share with the world. So please get it. I remember that in her case, she had bought land, a large expanse of land. Uh, I'd say probably about 10 or 15 years, 7 years before we did that mediation. I think I did the mediation in 2022. So she found out at some point that a real estate agency was encroaching into the land, or she feared that they were encroaching into the land because their signposts were on the land and all of that. So she started to write to them to contact them, and eventually she reported them to mediation and we invited them. And yeah, we found out that they said that they did not encroach on our land, that they just put signposts around all the land that they had recently purchased, so that if there was any adverse claims, those people will come out and they will be able to settle those claims before they pay the seller in full. So eventually, she also invited the person that sold to her, the seller, and we found out that the seller said that some people had tussled with her, and taken over a large portion of the land that she inherited, from her ancestor, and that this woman's land was part of it, So we were able to negotiate uh, terms. Both parties, I asked both parties to visit the land a couple of times, to know. The woman promised to, they wanted payment, the woman wanted to pay, but she was proposing a long payment period and they were not up for it. So they decided that they wanted the land replacement. So I asked parties to go and check out another portion of land that the seller claimed to own, and for the real estate company to also go with them to ascertain that it wasn't the portion that they had already purchased, you know, from the seller or from another seller, because the seller told us that those that snatched the land from her had now sold to the real estate agent. But the portion that belonged to the complainant, that woman, was part of what was snatched from her, because she also sold to the real estate company. So eventually she showed them another portion of land. It wasn't as a choice as the one that was taken, but we settled it that way. Mediation is not win-win. It's mediation is not win-lose. It's win-win. So everybody wins. This woman was claiming that she was poor, now that she had no money. She could not pay the value of the land now, except to spread it over a meaningless period of time. And these people said that they wanted a replacement, and so they had to concede to take that portion of land. But now the woman had to give them all the assurances that that land, is in good condition, and there's no adverse claims. And that's how we settled the matter. So we executed a memorandum of understanding, and they got their land. So I saw her at the ATM, and she greeted me really pleasantly. These are people that, if not for mediation, we wouldn't know each other. I wouldn't even be able to greet them in town. There was a time I was going to work too, and one man was stopping me and greeting me, and I was like, I couldn't really recollect his face, and he was saying, "Oh, don't you remember me? You helped us in this our land matter to do this. You said we should go and do this. The people we brought, the respondents, you told them to do this and that." And he was really pleased, happy. So I greeted him well. So what I'm saying is that I have now come to realize that God had a plan all along. So mediation, doing the work of a mediator at my place of work, has helped me to make much more impact than I might have ever made. Even if they are put me in another department, maybe in a court grade. If they are put me in a court grade department, I probably will not get judgments in 3 years. The bottlenecks, adjournments, all manner of things. There are so many things that affect litigation in Nigeria. What is coming to my mind is problems of agriculture, illiteracy, lack of storage facility, poor road network, lack of power supply, inadequate power supply. Those are things I learned in GS3, but for some reason I've refused to forget them. So, but that's not applicable here. The problems of litigation are unwillingness of the other counsel to continue the matter, the court's unavailability, unforeseen unavailability of the court, prolonged trial, adjournments, unwilling witnesses, even the prosecution that I did, there were several times. I've written an opinion piece on my prosecution period, and what I thought could be done better. It's online. If you just Google Mujola Oluwa, Mujola Oluwa, incentivizing prosecution witness, that's the post. So you would I realized that so many things would have affected my work and made me ineffective if I had not been a mediator. So I'm doing my records at the moment. I think in the last 3 years, I'm not certain now, but I've probably done 400 or close to 400 cases with at least an 82% success rate. That means that if I did 100 cases, at least 82 of them were successful. We're able to reach a compromise, a practical compromise, and parties went home happy. So those figures are not settled yet, because I'm adding the work that I'm doing day by day to it. So, but it's something in that area. So it's made me really happy. Mediation has made me really happy. I'm really glad I've been a mediator these 3 years. At my workplace, it may look, being a mediator or being in the mediation department may look like they just went to adopt you somewhere. I will not be expatiating on that. But in the long run, it's been a glorious experience. I'm so glad. I'm proud to say that I'm a mediator today, and I've made much more impact than I might have made, if I had gone to any other department. But this is one thing that I wanted, that really made me want to do this live session, is that I realized that in recent times I've done some mediation that were abandoned and then kick-started again. So I realized that one of the reasons, or one of the modes where one of the ways in which mediation differs from litigation. Mediation basically just means parties coming together, submitting to a third party who is a neutral party to help them come to a resolve, to negotiate their way to an agreement. I've written a whole book on it. It's 3,000 naira. It's equivalent in dollars and pounds or whatever the currency is. The link is in the description box in this live session. Please buy the book and read it. And I've done about 6-7 videos on mediation on this channel. Please check out those videos and learn what I have tried to explain or teach in those videos. So that's basically mediation. Now, I've realized that another way that it differs from litigation is that parties, can leave the mediation. There could be a hiatus and they will just go, leave it, and then come back when they're ready to continue. And we just open their file again and continue. I understand that this may not be totally, it may not be a watertight difference in the sense that it may not be applicable elsewhere. But I work at a government-owned mediation center where mediation is free. And that's probably why parties are at liberty to do this. There are a handful of cases handled by my colleagues and I, whereby parties just go and they don't come back to continue the mediation. Maybe we are adjourned for something to happen and parties just go, or one party keeps coming, the other party refuses to come. So we don't really close the case, but we just leave it in hiatus. And then any day the parties come back and say they want to continue, let's continue, we're here. So the first case that I did, there's one case that we did in 2021. It involved a company, a plastic production company. The company is very popular. They make plastic furniture in Nigeria, and they were in a tussle with the family that given them that leased the land on which they established their factory on. And the land had been leased for close to 70 years or thereabouts. So the tussle was really about buying up the entire land or reviewing their rent upwards. The price, they thought the price the family was asking for was unreasonable, and the family thought that you're making profit on our land, so you should totally review the prices. Things are not the same way they were 40, 50 years ago when our ancestors leased this land to you. I think it was about 40, it's been 40, 50 years, but it's a 100-year lease, a 99-year lease. How leases are. So each time we adjourned the matter, I was co-mediating, I wasn't the primary mediator, but each time we adjourned the matter, we found out that a new set of people will come and say that they are the family and they are the ones that have the rightful authority, to say anything on the matter or make decisions. And then there has been a lot of things that had gone on. Even the company had tried to buy the land once, and they had been duped, by some members of the family, to the tune of millions. They had gone to court, the court had overturned, the purchase, and they had lost millions. So they were trying to buy and buy right this time. So they wanted to be sure and certain. So they came to mediation. So we found out that different sets of families were coming and saying, oh, we are the key principal members of the family. You know that in Nigeria, before you can sell family land, it must be with the consent of the family head and principal members of the family. So if it's without either of the two, it can be void or voidable depending on whose consent is absent. So we found out that they had a problem agreeing who were the principal members of the family. And so at some point, after a few sittings, they stopped coming. Some people were even coming from outside town, but after a few meetings, they stopped coming. So that file is in, how do we call it now? The file is in incubation at the moment. It's been closed but not foreclosed, which means that if they come back today, it's been they stopped coming over a year ago. So if they come back today, or they come back in the next 5 or 10 years and they say that we want to continue from where we stopped or we want to start all over, they are welcome. You can't do that in litigation. If you don't go to court, the court will strike out your matter. If the court will just say matter struck out for want of diligent prosecution. The court could even dismiss your matter. The court could do anything it likes. But if you don't come, if you bring a matter to court especially, and you stop coming, the court will determine the matter on their own accord. But for mediation, And probably because we're a public facility that opens its doors, to parties for free, uh, parties are able to come back at any time. So what really inspired this video was I thought about some mediation that I've done, in recent time, the last 2-3 weeks. I remember that I've done two matters that first came up in 2016. This is 2023. So the first one, uh, when they came, they wrote a letter asking us to uh, issue them the record of proceedings in the mediation that took place in 2016, because they were now going to court on the same matter. Now, you know that many courts in Nigeria now have pre-action requirements such that you have to show to the court that you have attempted, alternative dispute resolution before coming to litigation as the last port of call. So I think that's what happened. So they wrote to us. So I asked for the file to be looked for. That's a long while ago. I wasn't even in employment at the time. Well, the people that were supposed to get the file couldn't get it. So I had to contact the officer that did the matter, because they attached the invitation letter that we gave to them, that was issued to them at the time in 2016. So I contacted the officer that signed the letter, and she told me what the matter was about, that they had actually reached an agreement, but parties did not sign or execute a memorandum of understanding at that time. So now that they decided that they even want to go to court on the matter, they needed proof that they had been to mediation. So ordinarily we do not issue record of proceedings, because the records of the facts or things disclosed in mediation are without prejudice. I talked about this in greater detail in my book, On Your Marks, Get Set, Mediate. I hope you get the book and read it, and I hope you give me feedback. So it's an ebook, by the way. It can be purchased on my seller, on my seller store. So instead I wrote it to whom it may concern. Is it to whom or to whom? I wrote it to whom. I wrote a letter saying that they had been to mediation, and that this and this is what the matter came to when they came to mediation. So that was what we could do for them. But what I'm saying is that, can you imagine stopping in 2016 and then coming back? Even judgments of the court, like you finished your case, you've gotten judgment, there's a time frame for enforcement. If you don't, he who sleeps on his right sleeps and perpetuated. But I guess mediation is more equitable in the sense that you can go and you can come back to start from where you left off. So, but I would not say this is totally applicable, especially in places where you have to pay, or in other institutions offering mediation, as an alternative dispute resolution method. Another case that I handled recently, also a 2016 case, I realized that parties convened actually, and what happened in the case was that they actually reached a resolution. It was about a property matter, and it was they had leased the property to an international organization, for some work in telecoms, and it turned out that they were being paid, some amount of money yearly, for that. I think not really yearly, but on an agreed period. At an agreed period, period by period, they were being paid, some amount of money, for the property, the land. And then they had reached a resolution that the person acting for the family will no longer act as the lessor, and that some principal members of the family will now act as lessor. And so they were the ones that had the lawful authority to deal with the international company, on behalf of the family. So when it was time to get another payment, because it wasn't like every year, so they had time to sleep. So the international company told them that at mediation in 2016, they had agreed that this and this person would do like a change of an authority document, showing that they now had the rights, they had transferred the right to deal with the property from themselves to these members of the family, and that the family is consenting that they should do. It was agreed, mutually agreed, that they do an affidavit and all of that. They had done it, But and then they had also told the company that they had gone to mediation to substantiate, the changes. The company now said that if they do not have a document showing that they had actually gone to mediation and had agreed before the government authority that they would not be paid, and that the company will not deal with them. So they came back because of that. And then when they narrated everything to me, we had to do, a fresh memorandum of understanding. Essentially, we just put into writing the things that they agreed upon in 2016. So it wasn't as if we were doing something new. We were just executing a memorandum for a matter that they had agreed verbally in 2016 that, okay, let this party do this, let that party do that. So they did those things they agreed to do, but there was no document, in support. They did not come back to execute a memorandum of understanding after doing that. You remember the land matter I told you about? When I had said that, go show each other the land, approve it, take your surveyors there to measure out the land and ascertain that the seller is the rightful seller and the portion is something that is acceptable to you. After they had done that, if they had not come back, it would be the same as this family that now came back. But they came back and we executed the memorandum, reducing all our agreements into writing as the final settlement of the case. There are several matters like that. I did a matter once to when an imam and an alhaji were fighting, So one had claimed that, oh, your compounds, your property, your house, your residential building, while building it, you encroached into the mosque's land. And then the mosque was also, the alhaji was also claiming that in another side of his property, the mosque also encroached into his land. There were other claims apart from that, but we were really focused on the land matter. And after I'd asked them, take your surveys, go and measure out how each person entered into the other person's land and measure out, the portions to each other. After they had done that, I said, come back and let's execute a memorandum. So we executed a memorandum showing that that was the final settlement of the dispute. But these people did not come back. So they now came back in 2023 to execute that memorandum, and we took off from where they left off. So that's something that litigation could never get you. So that's just something I wanted to reflect on. I think that mediation it puts parties at ease a lot, puts parties at ease. In my mediation sessions, I crack jokes so that parties can laugh, especially when things are tense. So I'm like an untrained comedian. Even though people find me funny, parties always find me funny. But I'm trained comedian, because I learned from my director when I just started working. She had the ability to crack jokes in the most, serious and unpleasant situations, and parties would always be cracked up and relaxed, and then we could continue. So yeah, I'm a trained comedian in that wise. So also I do caucus. Things are very tense, I separate parties. You don't have that in litigation. If things are tense, the judge might get up and leave. There was a time I was in court, family court in Benin, and parties, a lawyer and another lawyer were fighting over who was senior at the bar and had the right to call their case first. We were innocent. We were waiting for our turn, and we had waited from 9. Before 9, it was about 12 in the afternoon. And because they could not resolve who should call their matter first or proceed with their matter, the judge got up and left every one of us in the court. She didn't even care if some people had been there, since morning. She said, you people are fighting, you can't resolve, I can't stand here. She left. So we don't do that. So that's another difference. In mediation, when things are heated up, we would usually do a caucus. Okay, one party excuse us, let's talk to the other party and bring them to reason. And then excuse us again, let's bring the other party in and talk them to reason as well. So there are different things, that differentiate a mediation from a mediation session from a litigation session or a trial proceeding, a trial of proceeding. So I just wanted to reflect on that, and especially about the fact that parties are, also have the grace to pause and play, as is convenient for them. Although this may not be a generally applicable rule. I want to thank the law firm of Albert and Abraham, who, when I published my book in September 2023, they paid for 5 copies, and they specifically asked me to give young lawyers or law students who are interested, of my choice. They didn't give any conditions. They said young lawyers or law students of my choice, any 5. They paid for 5 copies. It's an ebook, and the slots are still open. So if you are interested, if you're a young lawyer or a law student and you actually cannot afford to pay 3,000 naira at this time to buy the book, please shoot me an email. Just tell me what mediation means to you and do a shout out to the law firm of Albert and Abraham. So you can do that on Twitter. OM Livingstones on Twitter, and the law firm of Albert and Abraham are also on Twitter. So I would appreciate it if you could just tag them. You don't need to follow either of us. We're not trying to, this is not a cloud chase, but I just want you to, I want them to know the people that are getting their largest, from me. So if you could just find the handle of the law firm of Albert and Abraham on Twitter and my own handle, OM Livingstones, and if you just tag us in a tweet telling us what mediation means to you, you will get a copy. First come, first serve. I will send you a copy by email, and we'll contact you to get your email and then send you a copy. So, and if you can afford the book, please buy it on seller. It's on your marks, get set, mediate. I will see you in my very next live session. Soon, I'm bringing a super lawyer, a super IP lawyer, who is going to be telling us about how she specialized in IP in Nigeria and how you can specialize if specialization is good for you. The whole works. I'm bringing her very soon, this December. That's a Christmas gift from me to all Bartalkers, or is it Bartalkers? What should we call ourselves? All lovers and followers and subscribers and watchers of Bartalk with Ola. So look out for it in the podcast section or in the playlist section, and I will always see you in my very next video or very next live to-dos.